I think there's a really significant difference when we use the term knowledge as opposed to when we use the term knowing. And I might have actually talked about this before, I can't remember. The difference between using a noun from using what I think is present continuous form of the verb. And this is something I think, I might be wrong here, that Ray Jackendoff talks about. I know he's certainly got an essay called Nouns and Verbs, which I read some time ago. And if I remember rightly, what he's talking about there is the tendency we have to treat noun terms as if they were objects and verb terms as if they were actions. And on the face of it, that's really obvious, except most of the nouns that we use are not objects. They're abstract concepts. Things like truth, justice, faith, love. These are all nouns, but they're not objects. So, in Jackendoff's writing, I think he would say that we treat those terms as if they were kind of prototypical, because they're nouns. We treat all nouns as kind of prototypical objects. Conversely, verbs, like knowing, which is an abstract concept, but also words like being, I suppose, or thinking, or any kind of verb that doesn't refer to a particularly concrete action out there in the world. They must also be, they're kind of metaphorically understood through a similar kind of process of this metaphorical mapping. So we understand abstract verbs through kind of some understanding of verbs which relate to concrete experience. So I don't know how far I can get with this, but I'm thinking about, what is the concrete experience that underpins all verb terms? And I don't know if this is Jackendoff, whether I'm just making this up as I go along. But certainly, as far as I can understand it, all verbs, including verbs like knowing, but also more concrete verbs, like walking, for example, they all involve a change in state. Baby! Dogs run off, I'm not sure what's going on up there. They all involve some kind of change in state. And that state might be any one of a range of different variables. It could be temperature, it could be location, it could be whatever it may be. But all verbs involve a change in state, and I think it's quite well established within cognitive linguistics that changes in state are understood as changes in location. There's a kind of general conceptual metaphor that applies to changes in state to changes in location. So, for example, if we look at temperature, a change in the state of the temperature of an object, we could think of it as, we might use a phrase like, this is going from hot to cold, or going from cold to hot, as if the state of hotness is in one place and the state of coldness is in another place, and the change in state involves a change in location between these two places. And you see it also in lots and lots of other terms, like from rags to riches, you might say, and describing someone's change in the state of a person's wealth, as if again they've gone from a particular location in conceptual space to a different location. So the change in that state again is understood as change in location. And that change in state, understood metaphorically as a change in location, seems to be at the heart of pretty much all the ones I can think of, certainly, all verbs, even the most abstract. So a word like knowing involves a change in state from a condition of not having this information or not being where the knowledge is to a different state in which one is where the knowledge is, and hence an implied change in location. Guys, Phoebe, come on. I think we find that extensively in the, I think it's called the infinitive form of all verbs, which begins with the word to. And I can't honestly say I've ever thought about this before, but when we use a verb, or when we use an infinitive form of a verb, we say to go, to know, to lift, to raise, to float, to grasp, all those kind of things. And the word to, at the beginning, carries with it, I think, that sense of change in state and change in location. So all verbs, I think, at their heart are prototypically movements from one space to another space, going from one state to another state, and that's embedded right in the language too. So I think in terms of knowledge, I guess this is where I'm going with it, in terms of knowledge or knowing, sometimes I use the word knowledge, but I think implicit within that is, as Jackendoff said, by using the noun form, I'm referring to prototypical object experiences, which I've spoken about before, which have kind of prototypical qualities to do with boundedness and permanence and all those things. When I use the verb form, the present continuous form knowing, that's alluding to change in state, which is not to do with an object with those entailments, but to do with a change in state, and hence a change in location, with all the very different entailments that changes in location imply.